Good evening everyone. So I've got an interesting video for you today, crit rate or crit damage. So let's quickly have a look here. This is a pre-recorded video that I made just because we can just skip forward. So you'll see here's my Ayaka build, and typically what I want to sort of show is at her currently she's got 66 crit and 200 crit damage. And yes, the crit damage is lower than what I would personally like, but I mean that's just because of artifact RNG, and I'm not going to waste my primogems and money farming artifacts because there's no guarantee. So we'll just get them as they come. Right, so now if we go on, I've got a crit rate little circlet here, and then I've also got a one next to it is a crit damage circlet. The only difference really between the two is they've got the same sort of attack, and all the other buffs are irrelevant. And then you can see a 4.7, and we've got an 8.7 right here. That's pretty much the only difference. So if you subtract the crit damages, effectively we've got about a 50% damage increase in crit damage, but of course then crit rate falls away. So the question is, which one of these two is better? So let's quickly see what happens in the Spiral Abyss. As you can see, I'm very clear here to abandon my previous challenge because what happens in the Abyss is it snapshots all your artifacts, so you can't exit, change, and think you'll be able to do better. The entire Abyss keeps record of what you have, so you've got to clear it. And then we're just going to quickly go here on the first floor. We're going to pick a buff that doesn't do anything, and what we want to do is we want to apply Cryo, or get the Cryo buff. We want to miss the swing, and because if we don't miss, yeah, it's a bit technical, but I just want to sort of get the point across here. If we do a charge attack, and this is what we want, we get 18017, so that's pretty cool. So 18017, and that's the whole point that I want to try and make. And as you can see here, one of these 3 slashes didn't crit, but 2 did, so that's exactly as we expect, because we've got a 66% crit rate, so every 2 out of 3 will hit. Now if we exit the Spiral Abyss and we quickly go and swap artifacts into a crit damage artifact, you'll see now this has gone up, so we're almost like at 250, and our crit rate's gone down. That's the only thing I've changed. And we're going to quickly go back into the Spiral Abyss, go back all the way, and now what we'll do is, there we go, here we can see the numbers. We've got now 2629, and if we just quickly do a bit of quick maths here on the calculator, as we can see it's an increase in damage. We get this value, and if we divide it by the 18017, we get 14%. And now this is where I really want to take you through some very simple maths, because this is not as good as it looks. And you might say rightfully so, because we've increased our crit damage by 50 over 200, so why aren't we getting 25%? Why are we getting 14%? And the answer is, first of all, you can't do this, because if you go into Genshin Impact, into the detailed damage calculations, then what you'll typically find is that your crit damage, you have to actually add 1 onto it. So the proper way to calculate this would have actually been 50 divided by 300, and that is 16.66%. And when I showed you my artifacts earlier, we actually had lower attack percentage, so that accounts then for the slight difference between the 16 and the 14%. So crit damage, not always so good, but here's another big reason why. So what we did with Ayaka's charge attack is we did 3 slashes, and I did this calculation beforehand, and I'll just sort of put it up here. Effectively what happens is, at the old crit rate of 66, with 3 slashes and each slash doing about 18k damage, we get an expected, or like almost an average amount of damage, which is 35k. But with a far lower crit rate, even if we've got like a bit more damage here, our average is significantly lower. In fact, it's 39% lower. So the big takeaway from this video is damage on average matters, and it matters quite a lot with a character like Ayaka, especially in her elemental burst, because each one of her elemental bursts ticks, like all the little 20 slashes that she does. each one has its own crit rate calculated independently. So what you want is you want a higher crit rate here instead of just crit damage. Otherwise your overall damage across time is going to drop off, and I've actually tested this quite a lot in the Abyss. You can actually feel it, and it's only if you do a bit of, like, if you get really lucky with this number here, that your damage tends to spike more, so you've got like more variance in terms of the upper ends of damage that you can do, but it's not consistent. And when you want to do Abyss runs like I do them, which is mostly solo, which is to try and do a no damage run, consistency is the key, because if you want to do this over and over, you need to practice with something that's going to give you sort of results that'll feel right on average. If you do too little damage on average, then the clock runs out. But by getting a very decent middle ground, things will work out. So hopefully you can understand now why just stacking crit damage is not always the best thing. And that's what I've got for this video. Cheers.